Sienna God, hello all. This afternoon, good afternoon. Why thank you for watching. This is day 3 of reading Many Lives, Many Masters, a timeless classic, the true story of a prominent psychiatrist, his young patient, and the past life therapy that changed both their lives, by Brian L. Weiss, MD. I'm going to start a couple sentences back. Did he indeed agree to be born to us and then die 23 days later in order to help us with our karmic debts, and in addition to teach me about medicine and humankind, to nudge me back to psychiatry? I was very heartened by these thoughts. Beneath my chill, I felt a great love stirring, a strong feeling of oneness and connection with the heavens and the earth. I had missed my father and my son. It was good to hear from them again. My life would never be the same again. A hand had reached down and irreversibly altered the course of my life. All of my reading, which had been done with careful scrutiny and skeptical detachment, fell into place. Catherine's memories and messages were true. My intuitions about the accuracy of her experiences had been correct. I had the facts, I had the proof, yet even in that very instant of joy and understanding, even in that moment of mystical experience, the old and familiar logical and doubting part of my mind lodged in objection. Perhaps it's just ESP or some psychic skill. Granted, it's quite a skill, but it doesn't prove reincarnation or master spirits. Yet this time, I knew better. The thousands of cases recorded in the scientific literature, especially those of children speaking foreign languages to which they had never been exposed, of having birthmarks at the site of previous mortal wounds, of these same children knowing where treasured objects were hidden or buried thousands of miles away and decades or centuries earlier, all echoed Catherine's message. Now think about that. Where are your birthmarks at? Right? I mean, I was gonna say, I have one in between my toes. Could that mean that I've got, like, in one of my past lives, I got a wound there and I got an infection, maybe sepsis from it or something, in a time where it couldn't be treated? I have one on my right forearm. It's the same thing. I know my son's got one about, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches above his lower back. That would have been fatal for sure. My dad had two that I remember on his back. He could have had 3, all of which would have been fatal. One was like this big. Like, what is that? Right? Was that a spear? Was that a gunshot wound? Like, what was that in a past life, right? My hubster, I think he's got one on his shoulder, but I mean, it's hard to tell because he's got freckles. So it's like, what's that? Anyway, but yeah, that's all I can think of off the top of my head. So, but you know, like, is it? And I think I have one in a similar fashion as my dad somewhere on some part of my back. I feel like it's like my lower back or something. I was like, oh my gosh. But anyway, but I know our son has got one prominent one. And then he's got a couple areas that I think might have faded as he's gotten out of his toddler years, but I don't know, I'd have to look again. But think about that though, right? Like, that's pretty like, Ooh, and I got this one right here, or 2 of these. But this one right here has been with me for like the longest. I don't know if that's sun damage or what. I have to look back at photos that are close. But I think that's the only one. Oh, this one right here has been with me a very long time. And I think this one too. So, but all those would have been fatal back in the day, right? Anyway. I knew Catherine's character and her mind. I knew what she was and what she wasn't. No, my mind could not fool me this time. The proof was too strong and too overwhelming. This was real. She would verify more and more as our sessions progressed. At times over the succeeding weeks, I would forget the power and immediacy of this session. At times, I would fall back into the rut of everyday life, worrying about the usual things. Doubts would surface. It was as if my mind, when focused, tended to drift back into old patterns, beliefs, and skepticism. But then tended to drift back into the old patterns, beliefs, and skepticism. I was like, should I go back and read that? And then I boogered another word, and I'm like, yeah, I need to quit thinking about it and just do it. But then I would remind myself this actually happened. I appreciated how difficult it is to believe these concepts without having personal experience. The experience is necessary to add emotional belief to intellectual understanding. But the impact of experience always fades to some degree. At first, I was not aware of why I was changing so much. I knew I was more calm and patient, and others were telling me how peaceful I looked, how I seemed more rested and happier. I felt more hope, more joy, more purpose, and more satisfaction in my life. It dawned on me that I was losing the fear of death. I wasn't afraid of my own death or not of non-existence. I was less afraid of losing others, even though I would certainly miss them. How powerful the fear of death is. People go to such great lengths to avoid the fear. Midlife crisis, affairs with younger people, cosmetic surgeries, exercise obsessions, accumulating material possessions, procreating to carry on a name, striving to be more and more youthful, and so on. We are frightfully concerned with our own deaths, sometimes so much so that we forget the real purpose of our lives. I was also becoming less obsessive. I didn't need to be in control all the time. Although I was trying to become less serious, this transformation was difficult for me. I still had much to learn. My mind was indeed now open to the possibility, even the probability, that Catherine's utterances were real. The incredible facts about my father and my son could not be obtained through the usual senses. Her knowledge and abilities certainly proved an outstanding psychic ability. It made sense to believe her, but I remained wary and skeptical about what I read in the popular literature. Who are these people reporting psychic phenomena, life after death, and other amazing paranormal events? Excuse me. Are they trained in the scientific method of observation and validation? Despite my overwhelming and wonderful experience with Catherine, I knew my naturally critical mind would continue to scrutinize every new fact, every piece of information. I would check to see if it fit into the framework being built with every session. I would examine it from every angle with a scientist's microscope. And yet I could no longer deny that the framework was already there. Chapter 5. Yeah, unfold this one. There we go. We were still in the middle of the session. Catherine ended her rest and began talking about green statues in front of a temple. I roused myself from my reverie and listened. She was in an ancient lifetime, somewhere in Asia, but I was still with the masters. Incredible, I thought to myself. She's talking about previous lifetimes, about reincarnation, and yet compared to hearing messages from the masters, it feels anticlimactic. I was already realizing, however, that she had to go through a lifetime before she could leave her body and reach the in-between state. She could not reach the state directly, and it was only there that she could reach the masters. End quotes. The green statues are in front of a large temple building, she whispered softly, a building with peaks and brown balls. There are 17 steps in front, and there is a room after you climb the steps. Incense is burning, nobody has shoes, their heads are shaven. They have round faces and dark eyes, they are dark-skinned. I am there. I have hurt my foot and have gone there for help. My foot is swollen. I can't step on it. Something is stuck on my foot. They put some leaves on my foot. Strange leaves. Tannus, in brackets, tannin or tannic acid, which occurs naturally in the roots, wood, bark, leaves, and fruit of many plants, has been used since ancient times as a medicine because of its styptic or astringent properties, in bracket. First, my foot was cleansed. This is a ritual before the gods. There is some poison in my foot. I stepped on something. My knee is swollen. My leg is heavy with streaks on it. In brackets, blood poisoning. They cut a hole in the foot and put something very hot on it. End quote. Catherine was now writhing in pain. She was also gagging from some terribly bitter potion that she was given to drink. The potion was made from yellow leaves. She healed, but the bones in her foot and her leg were never the same again. I progressed her in time. She saw only a bleak and poverty-stricken life. She lived with her family in a small one-room hut without a table. They ate some kind of rice, like a cereal, but they were always hungry. She aged rapidly, never escaping the poverty or the hunger, and she died. I waited, but I could see Catherine's exhaustion. Before I could awaken her, however, she told me that Robert Jared needed my help. That's Jarrod. I had no idea who Robert Jared was or how I could help him. There was no more. After awakening from the trance, Catherine again remembered many of the details of her past life recall. She remembered nothing at all of the after-death experiences, nothing from the in-between state, nothing of the masters or of the incredible knowledge that had been revealed. I asked her a question, in quotes, Catherine, what does the term masters mean to you? End quote. She thought this was a golf tournament. She was improving rapidly now, but she still had difficulty integrating the concept of reincarnation into her theology. Therefore, I decided not to tell her about the masters yet. Besides, I wasn't sure how you broke the news to someone that she was incredibly talented trance medium who would channel wonderful transcendental knowledge from the master spirits. Catherine agreed to allow my wife to attend the next session. Carol is a well-trained, highly skilled psychiatric social worker, and I wanted her opinion about these incredible happenings. After I told her what Catherine had said about my father and our son, Adam was eager to help. She was eager to help. I had no trouble taking notes of every word from the lifetimes when Catherine whispered quite slowly, but the master spoke much more quickly, and I decided to tape record everything. 1 week later, Catherine came in for the next session. She continued to improve with diminished fears and anxieties. Her clinical improvement was definite, but I still was not sure why she was so much better. She had remembered drowning as Aranda had given her throat slashed, having her throat slashed as Johann, being a victim of a waterborne epidemic as Louisa, and other terrifyingly traumatic events. She had also experienced or re-experienced lifetimes of poverty and servitude and of abuse within her family. The latter are examples of the day in and day out many traumas that also get ground into our psyches. The remembrance of both types of lifetimes could be contributing to her improvement, but another possibility existed. Could the spiritual experience itself be helping? Could the knowledge that death is not what it appears to be contribute to a sense of well-being, of diminution, diminution, of fears? Could the entire process, not just the memories themselves, be part of the cure? Catherine's psychic abilities were increasing, and she was becoming even more intuitive. She still had problems with Stuart, but she felt able to cope with him more effectively. Her eyes sparkled, her skin glowed. She had had a strange dream during the week, she announced, but she could only remember a fragment of it. She had dreamed that the red fin of a fish was embedded in her hand. She went quickly and easily, reaching a deep level of hypnosis within minutes. In quotes, I see some type of cliffs. I'm standing on the cliffs looking down. I should be looking for ships. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm wearing a blue type of pants, short pants with strange shoes, black shoes, and they buckle. The shoes have buckles, very funny shoes. I see on the horizon there are no ships, end quote. Catherine was whispering softly. I progressed her in time to the next significant event in her life. In quotes, we're drinking ale, stout ale. It's very dark. The tankards are thick. They're old, put together with metal stays. It's very foul smelling in this place, and many people are in there. It's very loud. Everybody is talking, very noisy, end quote. I asked her if she could hear anybody calling her name, end quotes. Christian is my name, end quote. She was a male again, end quotes. We're just eating some type of meat and drinking ale. It's dark and very bitter tasting. They put salt on it, end quote. She cannot see a year, end quotes. They're talking about a war, about ships blockading some ports, but I can't hear where it is. If they would be quiet, we could hear, but everyone's talking and noisy, end quote. I asked her where she was, end quotes. Hampstead, in brackets it says phonetic spelling. It's a port, a seaport in Wales. They're talking British, end quote. She went ahead in time to when Christian was on his ship, end quotes. I can smell something burning. It's a terrible smell. Burning wood, but something else. It burns your nose. Something in the distance is on fire, some type of vessel, a sailing vessel. We're loading something with gunpowder, end quote. Catherine was becoming visibly agitated, end quotes. It's something with gunpowder, very black. It sticks to your hands. You have to move fast. The ship has a green flag on it. The flag is dark. It's a green and yellow flag. There's some type of crown with 3 points on it, end quote. Suddenly, Catherine grimaced with pain. She was in agony, end quotes. Ah, she grunted. The pain in my hand. There's some metal, hot metal in my hand. It's burning me. Ow, oh. End quote. I remembered the dream fragment and understood now about the red fin embedded in her hand. I blocked the pain, but she was still moaning. End quotes. The splinters are metal. The ship we're on was destroyed, the port side. They have the fire under control. Many men have been killed. Many men. I have survived. Only my hand is hurt, but it heals with time. End quote. I took her ahead in time, letting her pick out the next significant event. End quote. I see some type of print shop, printing something with blocks and ink. They're printing and binding books. The books have leather covers and strings holding them together, leather strings. I see a red book. It's something about history. I can't see the title. They haven't finished the printing. The books are wonderful. Their covers are so smooth, the leather. They're wonderful books. They teach you. End quote. Obviously, Christian enjoyed seeing and touching the books, and he dimly realized the potential of learning this way. He seemed to be largely uneducated, however. I progressed Christian to the last day of his life. End quote. I see a bridge over a river. I'm an old man, very old. It's difficult to walk. I'm walking over the bridge to the other side. I feel a pain in my chest. Pressure, terrible pressure. Pain in my chest. Oh. End quote. Catherine was making gurgling sounds, experiencing the apparent heart attack that Christian was having on the bridge. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. Her face and neck were covered with sweat. She began to cough and to gasp for air. I was convinced. Was re-experiencing a heart attack from a previous lifetime dangerous? This was a new frontier. Nobody knew the answers. Finally, Christian died. Catherine was now lying peacefully on the couch, breathing deeply and evenly. I let out a deep sigh of relief. End quotes. I feel free. Free. Catherine gently whispered. I'm just floating in darkness. Just floating. There's a light around. And spirits. Other people. End quote. I asked if she had any thoughts about the lifetime that she just ended, her life as Christian. End quote. I should have been more forgiving, but I wasn't. I did not forgive the wrongs that people did to me, and I should have. I didn't forgive the wrongs. I held them inside and I harbored them for many years. I see eyes. Eyes. End quote. Eyes? I echoed, sensing the contact. What kind of eyes? End quote. The eyes of the master spirits, Catherine whispered. But I must wait. I have things to think about. Minutes passed in, end quote, minutes passed in tense silence. End quotes. How will you know when they are ready? I asked, expectantly, breaking the long silence. End quotes. They will call me, she answered. More minutes passed, then suddenly her head began to roll from side to side and her voice, hoarse and firm, signaled a change. End quotes. There are many souls in this dimension. I am not the only one. We must be patient. That is something I never learned either. There are many dimensions. End quote. I asked her whether she had been here before, whether she had reincarnated many times. End quotes. I have been to different planes at different times. Each one is a level higher of higher consciousness. What plane we go to depends upon how far we've progressed. End quote. She was silent again. I asked her what lessons she had to learn in order to progress. She answered immediately. End quote. That we must share our knowledge with other people, that we all have abilities far beyond what we use. Some of us find this out sooner than others, that you should check your vices before you come to this point. If you do not, you carry them over with you to another life. Only we can rid ourselves of the bad habits that we accumulate when we are in a physical state. The masters cannot do that for us. If you choose to fight and not to rid yourself, then you will carry them over into another life. And only when you decide that you are strong enough to master the external problems, then you will no longer have them in your next life. I don't know about you, but I don't want to take it. I want to take all the positive with me. I don't want to take any of the negative. Like, I'm working really hard to get through like the negative stuff. You know what I mean? Like, let's leave it here. That's baggage that we could just, if it gets lost, we're not going to go claim that, you know? Or if they're like, hey, we found your, no, you didn't. That's not mine. That's not my baggage. Anyway, end quotes. We also must learn not to just go to those people whose vibrations are the same as ours. It is normal to feel drawn to somebody who is on the same level that you are, but this is wrong. You must go to those people whose vibrations are wrong with yours. This is the importance in helping these people. End quotes. We are given intuitive powers we should follow and not try to resist. Those who resist will meet with danger. Oh,